Sometimes a story seems simple on the surface. A teenage dispute, a single gunshot in a dark alley, and a 16-year-old is arrested for murder. It sounds like a tragic but sadly familiar story. But in this case, the truth is, well, it's so much more sinister. It involves a cold, calculated plot that was engineered by the very last person anyone would ever suspect. So let's just start with this question. What if the person the police arrest, the one who seems like the obvious bad guy, is actually just a pawn, a decoy put there on purpose to take the fall by the real mastermind, the one person in the world he should have been able to trust more than anyone? Okay, let's dive into how this all started. Our story begins with the tragic death of a teenager in a case that, at first, the police thought would be totally open and shut. So here's the official story, the way everyone saw it at first. It's the evening of March 4th, 2022, in Albuquerque. A 16-year-old named Joshua Ruiz agrees to meet up with Angelo Baldonado, who's his girlfriend's brother, in an alley. Just moments later, witnesses hear some shouting and then a single gunshot. Joshua is found dead, and Angelo, who's also just 16, is arrested pretty quickly and charged with first-degree murder. So the narrative is clear, right? A teenage fight, probably over a girl, that just escalated into something fatal. It's heartbreaking, but it seems straightforward. But for the investigators on the scene, right from the very beginning, something just didn't add up. And this right here is where that simple story just starts to completely fall apart. The physical evidence, well, it began to tell a very, very different story than the one the police were hearing. Almost immediately, these huge red flags started popping up for the detectives. First off, they get surveillance footage, and it shows the victim, Joshua, just walking calmly into the alley, not looking aggressive at all. Then they look at the suspect, Angelo, and he has 0 defensive wounds, no sign of any kind of physical struggle, and then there's the biggest question of all. How in the world did a 16-year-old kid get his hands on a registered firearm?
So you see the problem for investigators. On one hand, you have the official story. Joshua was the aggressor, it was this violent fight. But then you have the actual forensic evidence telling a totally different story. A calm victim, a single, deliberate shot, and a gun that they trace back to an associate of Angelo's mother. The two narratives just could not both be true.
The investigation kind of hit a wall, until one single message changed everything. Angelo's older brother, who was clearly weighed down by guilt, reached out to a relative on Facebook. And in that message, he hinted that Angelo wasn't the real shooter, and that their mother had done something absolutely terrible, letting his younger brother take the fall.
That one message completely unraveled a story of shocking manipulation and betrayal, and it put the boy's own mother at the absolute center of a murder plot.
Turns out the real mastermind wasn't the teenager holding the gun. It was his own mother, Elizabeth Ortiz-Chavez. What police discovered was that she hated that Joshua was dating her daughter. She saw him as a threat to her control over the family, and she decided she was going to remove that threat permanently.
Listen to this quote from Elizabeth's older son. It is absolutely chilling. It just reveals her cold, methodical calculation. Think about it. She didn't just orchestrate a murder. She planned for her own son to be the scapegoat because she believed the juvenile justice system would go easy on him. She literally used her child as a shield.
This is just a terrifying example of what psychologists call coercive control. This wasn't just a single order she gave him. No, this was a pattern of manipulation. She preyed on her son's loyalty and his fear to groom him, to turn him into an instrument for her own sick plan.
And make no mistake, this was a premeditated plot. You can break it down into 4 clear steps. First, she created a false narrative, totally convincing Angelo that Joshua was a danger to their family. Second, she arranged the confrontation, luring Joshua to a place where he thought he was safe. Third, she provided the murder weapon. She gave her son the gun. And finally, she coached him on the cover-up, telling him exactly what to lie about and how to claim self-defense.
So with this horrifying truth finally out in the open, the case moved from the interview room to the courtroom. And the big question was, what would justice actually look like here? All right, here's the breakdown of the legal outcomes. Elizabeth Ortiz-Chavez, the mastermind, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and is now facing up to 18 years in prison. And her son, Angelo Baldonado, who the court saw as both a pawn and a participant, he pleaded guilty to conspiracy. He was sentenced to juvenile detention until he turns 21.
But prison sentences, they just can't capture the true devastation here.
Joshua was about to become a father. His child will now grow up never knowing him. His family, in their grief, has started a foundation to support other at-risk youth. And the case itself just stands as this terrible cautionary tale, leaving Angelo to deal with his role as both a victim of his mother's manipulation and a party to a murder.
And all of this leaves us with a really deeply uncomfortable question. When a parent so profoundly corrupts their role, twisting their own child into an accomplice to serve their needs, who really is the true victim here? It's a question that challenges our most basic ideas about guilt, about responsibility, and about that sacred trust that's supposed to exist between a parent and their child.